What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
The 7th generation Camry saw the light in 2011, and the model immediately debuted in two variants, Asian and North American. The model got to us quickly, and not just to car dealerships, but to local production. After all, since 2007 in Shushri near St. Petersburg worked Toyota plant, which produced sedans of the previous generation, and by November 2011, the conveyor was re-equipped for the production of the novelty. This allowed Camry to take the leading position in the segment not only among private buyers, but also in corporate sales, officials from small to large occupied the rear sofas of different degrees of equipment. No one cared that the basis of the novelty was the same platform K, on which was built even the grandmother of the new sedan, Camry 1530. The fact that by the time of the debut of the Camry with the Index 1550 platform K has already turned 10 years old, did not affect the longevity of the model. The sedan has undergone two restyling and was produced from 2011 to 2018. Sales did not disappoint. About 30,000 cars were bought annually, and in some years Camry even overtook such bestsellers as Renault, Logan, Kia Sportage, and Chevrolet Niva. One of the reasons for such stability was equally stable price. At the start of sales, the base Camry cost a little cheaper than 1 million rubles, and the top version was asked for 1.5 million. The 2014 restyling and currency fluctuations since 2015 raised prices by a couple or 300,000 rubles, up to 1.3 to 1.9 million. With the second restyling of 2017, Camry reached a new psychological mark of 2 million in the maximum version with a V6 engine, although the base was still cheaper than 1.5 million. Realizing this, looking at prices on the secondary market is even more surprising, because 2 million is not even the limit mark for cars that are already at least 3 years old. However, it is too late to be surprised now. The secondary market has jumped after new cars. It remains to console ourselves with the fact that the choice of used Camry is still very wide. At the moment of writing the material, there were more than 2,000 cars for sale on Avito. Now we just need to figure out whether it is easy to find a good one. From the point of view of body preservation, Camry came out ambiguous. The fact that thin and soft paintwork easily collects chips, and galvanization does not protect them from corrosion for a long time, is an unpleasant feature, but not surprising by modern standards. Worse, corrosion can appear in almost all typical areas: edges of doors and their bolts, edges of arches, joints of bumpers with wings, trunk lid and its aperture, as well as, of course, the hood and windshield frame. There is no aluminum here, so any car should be inspected thoroughly and completely. You should look in all hidden places. For example, rust can also hide under door and trunk seals, and it is almost guaranteed to be in the cavities of the arches covered with fabric lockers that collect moisture. The only question is its volume and depth. Low-quality replacement of the windshield can present loose corrosion in the opening, which will show itself only when it gets out. The bottom, of course, also cannot be left without attention. Most of it is covered with plastic, under which it is also necessary to look to inspect the seams, spars and cavities. Given this propensity for defects, it's not surprising that the vast majority of cars have already undergone at least a partial repaint. Camry is the case. When a completely repainted body does not always indicate an accident, often it is just an attempt of the owner to make his life easier and forget about touching up individual bugs. And, of course, it is not surprising that among the most popular tuning for Camry are protective coatings. Ads for sale are full of stories about liquid glass, ceramics, armored film, and other modern methods of protection. Another important remark on the choice of the car is attention to the condition of door locks, handles, seats and other wearing elements. Do not forget that a good half of the total volume of sold Camry was purchased by legal entities, so the driver's seat, worn armrests, and faulty windows hint at high mileage or corporate use. The back row should not be overlooked either. These sedans were also used in cabs, so the chances of coming across a restored car are quite palpable. Considering the highest liquidity, even thoroughly gone or badly beaten copies are restored and sold, so don't believe in suspiciously shiny freshly painted cars at the bottom of the market. Another argument in favor of restoring killed cars is the price and availability of spare parts. Most of the body parts can be bought non-original for cheap. For example, the front bumper costs 6 to 10,000 with the original price of 20, the rear bumper 8 to 12 instead of 25, and even the hood is available for 14 to 20,000 instead of 50 to 60. Front fenders can be found for 4 to 9,000 instead of 15 to 20 per piece. The conditionally expensive part is the windshield. The original one seems to be made of crystal, as it costs from 45 to 60 and up to 100 depending on heating. The Chinese analog without heating can be bought for 9,000, with heating of a zone of rest of brushes for 10 to 12, and with full heating for 20 to 30, but the glass from the known manufacturer all the same will cost under 70,000. But optics does not shock with prices. Halogen, even in the original version, costs a little more than 20,000, and substitutes start from 10 to 12. Xenon will be more expensive, up to 50,000 for the original, but even here there are variants twice cheaper. And only optional diode optics, which appeared with the secondary styling, costs under 80,000. However, another strong point of Camry comes on the scene here: its popularity, thanks to which almost all parts, if necessary, can be found on dismantling sites, and often within the limits of your city. As we already know, the Camry inherited the K platform from its predecessor. Incidentally, it's also the basis Lexus ES which we chose a year ago for less than $2 million. It uses McPherson struts all around. In the front, the usual scheme with L-shaped arms, and at the rear an uncomplicated design with 2 transverse links and 1 longitudinal on each side. Simplicity of design is combined with good resource, as well as cheapness of repair and good maintainability. Camry, with all its conditional status and service, is comparable with budget Koreans. For example, the front lever even in the original version costs 6,000, and analogs start from 1.5, though a decent one will still cost 4 to 6,000, and without a ball bearing in a complete set. Ball bearings are attached to bolts and are suitable for replacement, and instead of the original for 4,000 you can buy an analog from 500 rubles. Stabilizer struts both in front and behind are Kopechi, from 400 rubles. Amortizers are inexpensive. Both front and rear in a firm box will cost 7 to 8,000, substitutes start from 3, and a decent one like KYB costs 6,000. The front hub bearing is changed separately from the hub and costs 3,000 for the original and from 1 for analogs, but the rear one will have to be changed as an assembly, and the prices of parts are 3 times higher. The original rear suspension rods will cost 4,000 each, but the substitutes start from 1,000 rubles, so that the silent blocks for 500 rubles seem to be unnecessary savings. In general, there is absolutely nothing expensive to find here, so when you examine the car you can just bargain the necessary amount of money for repairs. Brakes of the sedan are also simple and unassuming, but in general reliable. Mechanisms: the most usual, single piston with a floating bracket on a circle, but discs in diameter of 296 mm in front and 281 mm. Behind are not enough only for races on cars with V6. However, for this case in the assortment of aftermarket there are numerous perforated and slotted discs, sports pads and reinforced hoses, and the most ambitious owners even dare to replace the front calipers on 2-piston. The rest are happy with the cost of maintenance and the price of consumables. The front disc costs 5,000 for the original and from 1.5 for analogs, and the rear is even cheaper. Steering control with an electric booster can be scolded only for absence of inarticulate feedback. Its resource usually exceeds 200,000 kilometers, if not to count light knocks and problems with paddle stubs. If necessary, the restored rail can be bought for 13 to 30,000 rubles. But here malfunctions of the amplifier itself are better not to leave without attention. The complete column costs more than 60,000. So with all reliability of EPS it is better to bargain for the cost of repair, if the car hints at it. Camry had only automatic transmissions. It's either the 4-speed U241 with the base 2-litre engine before the restyling, or the 6-speed U760 or U761 for the 2.0-2 and 5 engines and the U660 for the 3.5-litre V6. The good news is that all of these units are sturdy and reliable. The old U241 automatic appeared in the late 90s, and it can be considered almost eternal, if you change the oil at least sometimes. It can go up to 500,000 kilometers. Breakdowns are usually associated with a complete lack of maintenance or severe overheating. However, it should be understood that the age of the earliest cars with these boxes has already reached the mark of 10 years, so that The resource of even such an unkillable unit can come to an end. 6-speed boxers U760 U660 already have typical weaknesses of modern boxers: sensitivity to overheating and dirty oil, as well as tendency to actively contaminate this oil, mainly by wear products of torque converter locking pads. Accordingly, the frequency of oil replacement here should be at least 50 to 60,000 kilometers. And also it is necessary to take into account that even more durable U660 still feels itself unimportant in pair with a motor 3.5. Active starts and aggressive driving can finish it for 100,000 kilometers. That is very little in comparison with its potential resource. In addition, 6-speed gearboxes have some mechanical problems, about which we wrote in detail in the technical material on choosing a used Camry. Another pillar on which the popularity of the Camry is based is the motors, because there were simply no unsuccessful variants here. Basic were Toyota 1 AZFE before restyling and 6 AR FSE from 2014. A more powerful variant, 2.5-litre 2 ARFE, and at the top of the range was the coveted V6 with the Index 2 GRFE, which on the Camry after restyling in addition deformed from 272 to tax-friendly 249 horsepower. Toyota 1 AZFE is usually by inertia considered not the most successful, because on the related 2 AZFE there were problems with weak threads of bolts in the cylinder head. In addition, there are no standard repair sizes for the piston, although it is strange that it worries someone, because Japanese motors all used to simply change on contract. In practice, the motor is quite good. With normal maintenance and absence of overheating, it can go up to 300,000 kilometers. There is a reliable chain timing, one-phase regulator on an inlet, and even there are no hydrocompensators, so that the unattended motor will give itself out with a knock at cold start. And if necessary, this engine can be repaired by replacing the liners, although in practice it is usually just replaced completely. The 6 AR FSE, which replaced it, was marked by a constructive complication in the form of a combined injection system D4S, direct injection was added to the usual distributed one. Accordingly, injectors and fuel injectors here do not like bad gasoline and cost more. However, in general, the design is still quite problem-free. The larger and more powerful 2 ARFE is the golden mean and the choice of the majority. 180 horsepower is enough for the car. Structurally, the motor is also simple and reliable. There is also chain timing, cast iron liners in an aluminum block and distributed injection, except that there are two phaser regulators, both inlet and outlet, but it cannot be considered a big complication, and the price of parts is not so high. The resource usually exceeds 250,000 kilometers, and it is not difficult to achieve it, to change oil once in 10,000 kilometers. That is, as Toyota recommends, to follow the cleanliness of the cooling system and not to delay with service of the timing. The top V6 engine is both a good and dangerous option. Structurally, the motor is good. There is also chain timing, distributed injection, and good potential resource of a piston. It can be hindered to realize by leaky inlet, overheating because of clogged radiator pack, and also simply aggressive driving, for the sake of which many people, actually, buy Camry on V6. General maintenance costs will be higher here too. There are 4 phase shifters here, and each of them costs about 10,000, timing. Replacement will cost more, injectors are more, and so on. When buying, it is worth spending on cylinder endoscopy to make sure that there are no problems due to the destruction of the catalytic converter. But if you manage to find a copy with low mileage and not too hot owner, there should be no problems. Actually, after a brief study of the features of used Camry, it becomes clear why many people love them so much. After all, if you manage to find a car without an emergency past, and perhaps even after a high-quality repainting, then otherwise, there is nothing to be afraid of when buying. The problems are well diagnosed, the technique is reliable, and repair is inexpensive. However, the search for a good option can still be long. You will have to screen out a lot of rolled, corporate, taxi, Pat-San, beaten and rusty machines. But if you are really ready to raise the purchase budget to $2 million, you can find a Camry after the second restyling at the age of 3 to 4 years from the first owner and with a mileage of less than 100,000 kilometers, approximately like this, and if Autoteca will confirm the mileage and accident-free history and diagnostics, the absence of problems, then Camry can be considered not the worst investment by automobile standards. However, with the budget of $2 million, it is possible to swing and on that very Camry 3.5 in the maximum complete set. The main thing is to find a car with an adequate owner and honest mileage up to 100,000 kilometers. If the search is successful, the potential resource of the motor will be enough for many years ahead, and the liquidity of the car will be stably high. After all, Camry is usually bought not by heart, but by mind. In conclusion, while the price tag of $2 million may seem steep for a Toyota Camry VII XV50, it's essential to weigh the value it offers. This model is known for its reliability, comfort, and longevity, making it a solid investment for those seeking a dependable vehicle. However, potential buyers should consider factors such as maintenance history, mileage, and overall condition before making a decision. Ultimately, if the Camry meets your needs and expectations, it could very well be worth the investment. Thank you for watching, and we hope this discussion helps you make an informed choice.